I hit her. I didn't try to kill her. I hit her. I didn't mean it.
I saw the photographs, boy. You bashed her face in.
She didn't give me any choice.
You didn't have much choice, huh? So you used me.
The hell, that's what friends are for. I was in a jam. Come on, have a drink. I had a dead wife. $350,000 that doesn't belong to me. I had to get out. It's as simple as that.
Simple as that.
Goddamn simple. Cops have me legally dead. Augustine's got his money. He's not looking for me anymore. I got a girl that loves me. She's got more money than Sylvia and Augustine put together. The hell, nobody cares.
Yeah. Nobody cares but me.
Well, that's you, Marlowe. You'll never learn. You're a born loser.
Yeah, I even lost my cat.
Welcome to part 2 of our long goodbye episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect on their exclusive patron feed, and we let our non-patrons know what they're missing out on. Alex, we usually try to be cute about this and make some comment about how our guest has stepped out while we're doing this thing. I'm not even going to try to pretend that this is being recorded on the same day we recorded with Dale, because I was pretty sick when we recorded with Dale, and you can tell. So I'm pretty sure my voice in this little bit is going to be different from my voice on that really awesome recording we did, despite my health. So hopefully I sound better now. But this is going to be another short PP because we want to talk about the live stream for The Cure. So I'm just going to hit you with the basics. The basics being, if you're on the ground floor level, the $1 tier, the Travoltis, you're going to get our cutting room floor stuff, all the things that don't make it into the episodes. You're going to get this month our bonus episode, which is Southland Tales. An exciting conversation between Alex and I about the Rock's most off the beaten path movie, I think, even more so than Pain and Gain. And then, of course, you're going to get part 1 of Lohan, the exclusive patron miniseries that follows the rise and fall and rise again of Lindsay Lohan. Alex, what are we covering on part 1 for those who haven't listened to it yet?
Yeah, I realized the original mission statement maybe made it sound like we're doing like some life story, but we're just kind of doing it through the public eye. So we talk about the beginning of her career as a child actor, but the big ones we're hitting are Freaky Friday, Mean Girls, and Herbie Fully Loaded, because she followed up Mean Girls with Herbie Fully Loaded.
As you do.
As we talk about in the episode, the kind of baffling decision for that, but also talk about that Mean Girls it did well for itself, but didn't quite have the impact on pop culture until, years after the fact. But that's what we cover in the first part. We'll move on to the second when the time comes next month, and we'll talk about that the closer we get to it. But very pleased with how the first episode went, so be sure to check it out. We go into our thoughts and feelings on the 3 movies that we picked for it, and also, Lindsay's performances and kind of where she was and what she was poised to do at that time. So, yeah, fun stuff. I'm very glad we've brought back the Patron miniseries.
Yes, really, really cool stuff. And you get all that at the bare minimum. Now, if you want more, you can go up a tier to the Winonis tier, and further up, you're going to get our pre-recording notes, and you're going to get our QVRs, or quick video reviews. This month, we're doing a dual one. Alex and I are teaming up to tackle Teen Titans Go to the Movies, as requested / demanded by patron Paul Myers. Filmbusters Paul wants us to give DC another go, an animated form this time. So check that out. And then, of course, Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're watching, that we're reading, listening to, thinking about. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
For After Hours, I will be discussing the, from the Patron miniseries to a Showtime miniseries, Catching Lightning, the Showtime miniseries that's brand spanking new. I don't even know if all 4 parts have aired on television, like their initial airings, but if you have Showtime on demand, you can skip ahead and watch all 4 parts of that. It's the story of Lightning Lee Murray, who was a one-time MMA prospect who went on to orchestrate the largest bank heist in history. I think that's a good enough teaser just to kind of leave it there and let it dangle out there. So I'll be talking about watching that and my thoughts on it, and thoroughly plugging it for anyone out there who has access to it to watch.
On my end, I finally finished The Last of Us.
Hell yeah.
I stopped halfway through because I started watching it with my wife, and that meant that we had to coordinate our schedules. And we finally, this past weekend, we binged the last 4 episodes. And let's talk about it, because you've finished the show and you've played the game. So I have questions about the adaptation and how different it is, how similar it is to the game. That should provide a good conversation. And then, as an addendum, another show that we binged while we're just being couch potatoes is this really silly, really dumb reality show you might have heard of, maybe not. It's called The Traitors, and it's hosted by Nightcrawler himself, Alan Cumming.
Why not?
That should be the biggest selling point. Alan Cumming hamming it up as the host of a reality show where people have to figure out who the traitors are. I'll elaborate on the after hours, but the bulk of mine is going to be, of course, The Last of Us. So if any of that sounds interesting, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Look at the tiers and join the Contrarian supplements.
$1, $3, $5, and $10 are respective tiers. Like Julio said, just $1 will get you access to our new Lohan miniseries, and then also can go all the way back to our humble beginnings with bonus episodes on movies like Blue is the Warmest Color, and most recently Southland Tales, and everything that falls in between, and also our unbelievably comprehensive and thorough coverage of The Rock and John Cena's money-making professional wrestling feuds / their respective movie careers. And the more you pay, the more you get to tell us what to do. And, there's a movie that isn't somehow in our catalog already. We've covered a lot, but obviously movies are endless. Find that movie, find the tier, throw it our way, and say, dance, monkeys. This is what you're going to watch now. So to all of our current and existing patrons, we love y'all dearly. And as I like to say, we are always taking applications. It's a quick review process. And I don't know, unless you're one of the Russo brothers, we're going to accept your application.
Speaking of dancing for our audience, we will dance for you live, well, metaphorically, on the live stream for the Cure 2023. And
depending on how much money they donate, I might dance for real.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get super excited, and that leads to, at the very least, a little bit of jiggling. But here's a live stream for the Cure promo, and then we'll tell you about our show.
Together, we can make a difference. That's been the sign-off for everything Livestream for the Cure related ever since the event began back in 2017. Hello everyone, my name is Nick, and I am the host of the Livestream for the Cure, an annual charity event to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute for immunotherapy research for a world immune to cancer. And over the past 6 years, we've made that difference together. Amazing listeners, amazing viewers, amazing podcast partners and content creators all coming together, and we've raised over $70,000. But this year, we're going to make our biggest difference to date, and we're going to raise $25,000 for the Cancer Research Institute. Tune into the event at twitch.tv/livestreamforthecure starting May 18th, as we're joined again by podcast partners and content creators from around the world to help the Cancer Research Institute crush cancer. Together, we will make a difference.
All right, so live stream for the Cure. Our segment is on May 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. Central Time for all you Texas listeners, all our international listeners. Just go to Google, put in 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and see how that translates to your local time zone. But that's going to be our spot. We're going to do something similar to what we did last year, in which we'll take 4 actors and we'll have the audience throw movies from those actors' filmographies at us, and we'll right there on the spot, we'll come up with a mini Contrarians treatment based on the Rotten Tomato score. So just like a tiny taste of what we would do on the show if we were to do a full episode. The actors are TBD. We'll probably have them all set in stone by the time that we do our next episode. But be ready, because it's a lot of fun. And this year, we're adding the Josh Gad Minute to the mix. So that means that in addition to giving you the Contrarians treatment, we're also going to do this little feature that we do on our Facebook videos, on our YouTube videos, the warm-ups, where we just replace one of the characters in the movie with Josh Gad. We just cast Josh Gad into this new version of the movie because the world needs more Josh Gad. And Alex, here, I'm throwing this at you, and you can ruminate on it until our next recording. We could also add one other feature, something that I think we do fairly often. It comes up and it's always a lot of fun when it does on the main episodes. And that is, we could come up with whatever movie is thrown at us. We could come up with what the Criterion art would be and who would write the foreword for the Criterion release.
Yeah, let me ruminate on that because there is room for that could be great, but that's also something that I could easily kill a lot of time with. So I'm gonna have to think about it.
All right. If any of you have thoughts out there, let us know. But mark your calendars, May 20th, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when the Contrarians are going to be on the live stream for The Cure. At the very least, show up, say hi, say, hey, you guys are doing great. If you can donate to the cause, that's great. Because, we all hate cancer and we want cancer to be defeated, eradicated for good. And you don't have to limit your attendance to just our segment. You can stick around for the entirety of the live stream. Then all 3 days, there's going to be a lot of podcasts there just doing their best to raise money for cancer research. So check out the website, livestreamforthecure.com. Reach out to Nick or to us if you have any questions. And hopefully we'll see you there.
All right, and with all that being said, I think it's time that we welcome Dale back in and drop some real talk on the long goodbye.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I have absolutely nothing to hide either, but I'm not going to take my clothes off.
I want you to get naked so you can tell me the truth about my money.
You want to take your clothes off?
Would you like me to take off my clothes?
It's okay with me.
Why, it's a pleasure. As a matter of fact, everybody. Harry, everybody take off your clothes.
Marty. I don't want to take off my clothes. I have too many scars.
I understand. Go on inside, Pepe. Go on inside and take care of the telephone.
Well, here we are on the other side of the long goodbye, the longest goodbye ever. This is an interesting one, Alex. We've recounted our tumultuous, brief relationship with the noir genre, and of course, Dale has told us about his relationship to it as well. So there's going to be a lot of interesting conversation here. How are we starting this? Do you want to just get the quotes out of the way, or do you want to set the stage somehow? I don't know what's on your mind, Alex, because we haven't talked about this movie at all.
Yeah, I think the quotes are the way to go. I'd go ahead and see. I think you mentioned that there were only 2 negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So
yeah,
who dare question the good name of Elliot Gould? All
right. We're going to start with Variety staff from Variety, who says, an uneven mixture of insider satire on the gum show film genre, gratuitous brutality, and sledgehammer whimsy. It's a lot of big words. Gum show? Dale, is that right? Is that what you call it?
It should be gumshoe.
Gumshoe,
is it not
right?
gumshoe?
Okay.
Yeah, gumshoe. That's like an old, noir name for a detective, yeah.
Okay, Variety, get an editor. What the hell? It's like I knew something didn't sound right, but anyway, yeah.
He actually meant gun show in relation to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, there you go.
That gun show at the end.
Gratuitous brutality. I mean, that Coke bottle, that's might be one of the most memorable scenes in here. Where do you guys land on that? Too much brutality, just the right amount of brutality, not brutal enough?
I mean, that scene lingers. That's like the most unsettling part about it, but
I think that is yeah. I mean, and then there's one gunshot at the end. I like that scene. I think that it is a bit of a goofy movie, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And when you get to that scene, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we are going to be taking some parts of this seriously. And there's no other way to take that from that, because it is, that's the dialogue surrounding it, and then the actual violence is like, geez.
Yeah, there's no way of mistaking it by a comedy at that point.
Right.
This is serious.
Exactly.
Next, John Simon from Squire Magazine says, there may be 1 or 2 more farcical elements here than is customary, but for a real send-up, you would have needed Woody Allen rather than Gould, who is all wooden.
Oh, jeez. What a terrible movie.
Woody Allen as Philip Marlowe. That's too much.
God. Yeah.
I don't know how you pitch that with, in a way that's even somewhat like that holds together. There is a movie, isn't it? I don't think it's directed by Woody Allen, but where he plays. Doesn't he have like the ghost of Bogart, like advising him on how to?
Is that the one where, like, silver screen people keep coming off the screen and talking to him and like?
Oh no, that's Purple Rose of Cairo. Like the one where they,
right.
Yeah,
that's
no,
right.
but there's one. I think it's called Play It Again, Sam, and obviously Bogart is not in it, but there's somebody playing Bogart, like the ghost of Bogart, advising him on how to win, like the woman that he's in love with. But that's not The Long Goodbye. Like that is
right.
I don't even think it's a murder mystery. All right, now, I pulled a couple of things from Letterboxd, Alex, just because just to see how regular people reacted to The Long Goodbye. I looked at some negative ones. So Hollywood Movie gave it 1.5 stars and said, this movie starts out good with a pretty killer grocery store scene, but then begins to nosedive once you realize all the characters are talking very quietly about something you don't really understand or care about. Even if you turn up the volume all the way up, all that does is make all the dog and cat sounds more annoying. There's a beach party at some point in the middle of the film, and that's when I would recommend falling asleep.
I love that, like, he thought that the movie was really taking off during the, like, wandering cat scene. He's like, it just gets, like, I love that cat scene. I was really setting the stage. I was really invested in that cat, and then the rest of the movie, downhill.
I think he really liked it when the guy that works at the grocery store, he tells him, I don't have a cat, I have a girlfriend.
Yeah, like, and then
Sick
he mumbles,
bird.
yeah, he's got a girlfriend, I got a cat, haha.
And then one more, Benny Booger gives it also 1.5 stars and says, other than the novel as a basis, I don't know why they portrayed Marlowe as they did. Updating 1940s LA to the early 1970s, Elliot Gould plays the iconic Marlowe as a sarcastic, contrary, chain-smoking loser who is preoccupied the whole time with his missing cat. The entire film felt like it had more in common with Pynchon's novel Inherent Vice than with anything Chandler wrote, and not just for the characterization of the strange, iconoclastic private investigator. The looping storyline involving a missing man, the psychiatric institution, all of it was an obvious foundation for what Doc Sportello would eventually encounter. Also, baby Arnold Schwarzenegger. Before you ask, yes, he does take off his shirt.
That whole review makes me want to watch the movie, to be honest.
1.5.
I like it.
Is his point is like, this is not as good as Inherent Vice. Alex, you haven't watched Inherent Vice yet, right?
No, I own it. It's on the shelf. It's almost 3 hours, and I got to work myself up to it. Because also, it's one of those movies that I've heard such wildly divisive things about. I've talked to some people that fucking hate it, and some people that are like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I was not a fan, but I can see how you can, like the character Elliot Gould plays here and the character that Joaquin Phoenix plays in Inherent Vice. Yeah, they're both, just like we were saying with Andrew Garfield in Under Silver Lake and Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski. It's that type of detective. It's not the put-together detective, but the detective that's a mess and just kind of wanders in and out of these weird situations. You have seen Inherent Vice, right, Dale? You told me that you had seen it and you were not a fan.
I've seen it. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan either. If I'm gonna watch sort of more of a bumbling spoof of noir, I'll just rewatch The Big Lebowski like for the 87th time because I love that movie. But I didn't. It's not bad. I don't think. It's just it's a vibe movie, and I just didn't vibe with it. I think The Long Goodbye is a vibe movie too. If you don't catch that vibe early on and enjoy it, then you're probably not along for the rest of the ride either. Yeah.
At least it's not as long as Inherent Vice. But I had forgotten, but he's right. Like a big plot point in the Inherent Vice is that isn't there a facility that Joaquin Phoenix has to break into? Kind of like what Elliot Gould does.
It's been a minute, and the plot involves real estate somehow, doesn't it? There is a facility he has to break into, and he's very bad at it, but he ends up doing it. Yeah, he sort of just bumbles into a lot of the things, which is similar to Elliot Gould's character a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be curious, Alex, when you finally watch it. Like if you go, well, Gould did it better, or if you think that PTA beat Altman and at this. Noir game or neo-noir game.
Weren't you worried? I mean, waiting a week before you call somebody to find your husband.
What are you implying, Mr. Marlowe?
Well, I don't mean to be tactless, Mrs. Wade, but it doesn't look like you walked into a door.
Now, before we go into everything else, Alex, I think that usually, here we would just read the quote of the person that requested the movie, but we have Dale here. So Dale, give us your history with The Long Goodbye, why you picked it, and you don't have to score it yet, but just tell us how you feel about it.
The Long Goodbye was one that, so like I said, I really loved movies and a lot of pop culture at an early age, but I just didn't get an opportunity to consume of it. And like during college, I was sort of just playing catch up with whatever was, on TV that I, could watch in movies coming out. And so it wasn't until I got that job at the newspaper where I was the arts and entertainment editor, where it was sort of my job to start watching movies and paying more attention to pop culture. And that was like the early Netflix when they were still sending the stuff out by mail.
Mm-hmm.
I had a television, but it wasn't hooked up to cable, and the internet wasn't as, prolific then. I didn't even have like internet in my apartment at that time. And so I would just Netflix, I don't know if their formula used to be better, but it used to be a lot easier for, like, you could pick out cult things, like weird cult stuff, and they would just keep suggesting it to you. Mm-hmm. And that's where I just found, like, I didn't have much of a history. So that's where I found, like, everything from, Night of the Living Dead to, Evil Dead to Santa Sangre to, like, just a bunch of weird off stuff, and some of it I liked and some of it I didn't, but like I was, starting to build that, like, not like that film nerd knowledge where I could start having conversations with other people about it. And somewhere along that, there is when The Long Goodbye, it was this sort of cult classic, one of those things where nobody liked it when it came out, and then it got a huge following later on. And I obviously had, a lot of history of watching the older noir movies. And when it came on, and from the first cat scene, I was just on board. I just like, it was just that whole like tone of the movie was so surprising. I wasn't expecting it. And it was so less self-serious than than traditional noir was, in an interesting and cool way. And I thought Elliot Gould was like just such a weird choice for a leading man. And I really liked him. And so, yeah, I've been a fan of it ever since that one. And it's one that I feel you can just sort of put on over and over and like sort of watch it out of the corner while you're cleaning up the apartment or whatever, and notice different things each time that, like, the movie plays. I don't even think I understood the plot of it until like watching it like 4 or 5 times. Like that whole part where like Terry Lennox puts on the gloves to cover up he did it from like the first 15 minutes of the movie when he puts on those gloves to cover up his bloody knuckles. That is pretty much, you can derive from that he killed his wife, from those early, times. But like, it's so sort of, the tone of the movie is so like weird and sort of the mumbling thing and everybody talking over each other, that like major plot points are sort of hidden in interesting ways throughout it.
I mentioned that you were, that you have a cat in your book, and when I started watching The Long Goodbye, and there's like the opening sequence is all about the cat, and then the cat disappears, and then we never find out what happened to the cat. I had to go back to the Mean Reds and be like, yeah, that was one of the big things. I was like, I'm gonna try not to ask Dale, but now I'm going to. It was like, is the cat okay in the Mean Reds?
I think the cat is in the book is okay. Like it is definitely up to the reader to find out. You can interpret the cat's health however you like in the book, but I think the cat, like the cat, probably in this movie loses interest in its owner and goes to find somebody to better take care of it, is my guess of what happens.
Okay, that's sad, but it's still a better outcome, I guess, at the cat not being okay. Was that something that you had in your mind? Do you have in your mind The Long Goodbye when you were writing the cat stuff in your book? Or
No, I have a cat and I like cats, and I was just more of writing, like my personal stuff into it, and then later on, it was probably in there somewhere subconsciously, but later on I realized like, oh, which is why the first chapter of the book is titled "The Long Goodbye," is because like, oh yeah, like that's. That cat scene that I love so much. But I didn't really realize it until later.
The cat's a tremendous animal actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Hitting
like
all the
steals
cues.
the scene, steals the show. There's also a lot of like just cat and dog stuff in this movie. You know what I mean? Like that just the Wades have dogs that keep attacking Marlowe. The dog comes out of the suicide scene with the cane. There's the dogs that you can't look away from in Mexico that are humping each other. So there's a weird stuff with animals throughout the movie that I like find entertaining and interesting as well.
Yep. Well, Alex, tell me about your experience with Long Goodbye, because maybe hearing you talk about it will help me process my thoughts about the movie.
Yeah, I watched it early. It was on Paramount Plus. I was still kind of waking up when I turned it on, and I think that's kind of a cool way to watch this movie because it feels like it's a waking process for the first, the whole first act feels kind of like maybe like a waking dream or something like that. And noir is not my specialty. It's not like I avoid noir. It's one of those genres where a lot of times I don't know where to begin. It's like our buddy John Keating. I was talking about Night in the City with him when I saw him in LA. We were just talking about movies, and that one came up. And that's just an example of like a noir that I purchased through the Criterion sale that I had only ever heard of because there's a pro wrestling tie into it. And so like that, I was like, oh, I'll check this out. And then like Under the Silver Lake's a great example. I had never fucking heard of that movie. And then, it was put on our desk and I love it. I immediately bought it. It's just a genre of movie that I feel that when I watch it, like, it's weird. I don't feel that I'm necessarily qualified to critique noirs the same way I am, say, a solid drama or, even an action movie or something like that. So when I watch it, like the analytical lens that I wear is a little bit different, and disconnected's the wrong word, but I more just try to piece it all together than kind of analyze the parts of it. When we talk about movies a lot, we talk about the performances, the cinematography, the score, all that shit. In this, it just kind of all washed over me, and not unlike Roger Wade, and I found myself enjoying it. It did kind of drag a little bit towards the end, but aside from when I momentarily was reading something about the movie and lost the flow of the scene, and I looked up and all those guys had their clothes off, at no point was I like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? I'm not going to say it's easy to piece together. You definitely have to stay with it. And one of the things movies like this ask of the audience that not everyone can do is you have to be patient and trust that it'll all come together in the end. Whereas like a lot of movies, especially today, will just like spoon feed you every single scene and say, here it is, here it is, here it is. And when you watch something like this, halfway through it, I was like, I have no idea who's the bad guy, who I'm supposed to be cheering for, anything like this, but I need to trust that, this is supposed to be a good noir film so that in the end, this will all come together in a way that like makes sense to me. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be satisfying. I did, however, find the ending satisfying. I was like, yes, shoot him, kill him. He deserves it. I do think the idea of the killing and shooting and looking like a badass in the end is definitely like is something of the time, like that like the way the movies were being made then, and what we deem as the anti-hero, the dirty Harry, whatever cliche you want to use. But I think it works in the context of this because this is like a greasy, sweaty, gross movie. Of course, the guy who we followed the whole time is going to do something that we don't know if we agree with or support 100% in the end. I feel that it fits this movie and the Philip Marlowe that's presented and the way Elliot Gould plays him in this. I didn't feel it was a betrayal of the character. So in conclusion here of my thesis of this, I would really like to watch this again because I did enjoy the movie. And like I said, because of my limited experience in the noir genre, I interpret them differently. And I think if I did watch it again, I'd be able to kind of fixate more on the really strong parts of it that I do enjoy. But man, yeah, I thought this was a blast.
You made a deal with Terry Lennox.
Big deal. Terry Lennox was my friend. He asked me to give him a lift. I gave him a lift. I wish I hadn't.
Your friend was a criminal. Your friend was a murderer. He murdered his wife.
That's a lie. I know he didn't kill her. He
I'll
couldn't
tell you
kill
something else. It's a minor
anybody.
crime. A minor crime, a misdemeanor to kill your wife. The major crime is he stole my money. Your friend stole my money.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are a little bit either the noir is hard for them to get into and they don't know where to start. I mean, it's a lot like with a lot of things. I think one thing to keep in mind is that noir traditionally doesn't work like the modern thriller. You see like, the sort of the James Patterson things where there's like a very specific mystery involved. And there's all these little hints and checks along the way that all add up like clockwork to like some perfectly arranged machine or something like that. And noir is even like, that's one of the reasons why I like this movie as well, is it captures the mood of the book. The Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett and those early noir writers, the mystery was almost, I won't say entirely beside the point, but it was almost a red herring in and of itself, where it was like, you have this mystery, so you have this central conflict, but then really the joy that you get, the enjoyment that you get is like meeting all these weird characters along the way and like all these fun descriptions of like fashion and these like, this cool quippy dialogue and things like that. And so I think the movies that capture that the best are the ones that are not as concerned with like, okay, we got to drop these, hints that the audience can build, type of thing. The way more modern thrillers are constructed, and they're just like, it's a vibe that you latch on to and you're along for the ride and you're enjoying that ride for sort of what it is along the way. And that doesn't mean that you have to enjoy it, but those are a lot of the movies that I like and a lot of the books I like are a lot like that, where it's that voice and that character that you sort of latch on to. And certainly I want an entertaining plot too, but it doesn't have to work all out like perfectly like a Hitchcock, mystery or something like that.
Yeah, I think Alex was saying that you kind of have to have faith that it's all gonna come together at the end. But I was like,
totally,
or that at least that you're not going to care if it comes together at the end, because that's my experience. I think that to various degrees, when I'm watching one of these movies, I can't entirely turn off the part of my brain that's trying to piece it together as we go along. But I know, and I make an effort to try to not worry about following the plot that much, because I know that sometimes it's just impossible. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that, Alex, when we were talking about when I talked to you about Big Sleep over on Patreon, but it was just the relief I had when I was done with the movie, and then I started looking through reviews and realized that, oh yeah, it's not just me that I was having trouble following the plot. The Big Sleep is well known for having a plot that's very, very complex and really hard to follow. And so I think that sometimes can be the barrier when it comes to a noir, whether it's like the classic noir or the newer ones, that now I've just kind of learned that I have to go in and, a little bit like what you were saying, Dale, the mood, the vibe has to grab me to where it's very easy for me to let go of following the plot, and I can just enjoy hanging out with these characters. And then trust that when I get to the end, it's going to be satisfying, regardless of whether I can tell you exactly how we got from point A to B to C to D. Yeah.
And what I like about this movie is there are all of the, like, it is, I think the way that it's filmed makes it more confusing and intentionally so, of like, but all the clues are there. And it's not like they're hidden behind little things. It's just that they're like, there's so many other things that we're noticing and we're watching throughout the movie that, like I said, like I put it like him putting on the gloves at the beginning of it is this huge clue that you could really sort of almost solve the entire film from. But like it's right there. It's happening like directly in front of the camera in a scene there. But also like, it's easy to miss it. I didn't notice it like the first few times that I saw it. I knew he put on some gloves, but I thought it was like for fingerprints or something like that. I hadn't noticed that it was such, that was such an obvious thing of like, oh yeah, well, like why would his knuckles be bloody if he's not?
I took him at his word, I guess, because Elliot Gould was taking him at his word, and so because they have this friendship and they have this like quirky friendship that like, and you just think of Elliot Gould as that guy who you call up in the middle of the night if you need that, whatever favor, and like he doesn't ask any questions, he just does it for you, that type of thing. Yeah, this was a lot easier to follow though than I feared, because again, after having watched The Big Sleep, I was getting ready to just go through another sort of plot where I was going to have to be taking notes. And but no, this was it just carries you. And I think that the fact that Elliot Gould's performance, he's playing Marlowe in such a chill way, I think that takes some of the edge off because he doesn't care that much. So of course I don't have to care that much. He's just kind of waltzing through 3 separate mysteries there. I guess the Big Lebowski has a little bit of that too, where the dude is just so laid back about everything that's happening that it takes the pressure off, and you're like, oh, well, we'll just see what happens in the next scene, but I don't have to remember everything that's going on.
There's several parts where just like at that one point I think at the police station when the police come to, they ask him if he's employed. Which is something that specifically is asked in The Dude. He's like, are you employed? You don't go out looking for a job looking like that, do you, on a weekday? And the dude's like, is this a weekday? What? So yeah, there are like very specific things where I think that's the linchpin between modern stuff and I understand why the early reviews and even the reviews that say this movie is sort of all over the place and like it can't decide whether it's parody or like a serious thing. I think that's all intentional, and for me, it works. I think that it is both deconstructing sort of the machismo of like classic noir movies, with like especially with that when they're all getting naked at the end, like you have a room full of just naked guys for no reason, and like the Hemingway type guy who ends up being impotent and gets slapped around by the like tiny little psychologist, doctor. All these ways, I think. And there are other problematic things. We talked about the violence towards women in this movie that just sort of goes, more with the cliche of some of these things. So it's not a complete, like it doesn't succeed in all of those things, but I think that it is an interesting, like it does it interesting and not in an artsy way that's annoying. It's still fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Alex, how are you feeling about Elliot Gould as leading man?
Go ahead and just mention here, Philip Marlowe is a fictional character created by Raymond Chandler, who is characterized of the hard-boiled crime fiction genre. Looks like his first appearance in a short story was in the 20s?
Yeah.
And then Marlowe first appeared under the name In the Big Sleep, published in 1939. So, when I was kind of reading about this before I watched the movie, my mind immediately went to like Matt Helm, James Bond. Definitely not that. More of like, the grizzled detective. So anyway, to the question of Elliot Gould, one of the most cringe things you can see in a bad movie is someone who's trying to act cool and aloof and just kind of, devil may care. And they're like, I'm thinking immediately of Billy Baldwin and Sliver. That's Billy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
William.
So, William, I'm sorry, and introducing William Baldwin. So, that is like skin crawling, even more so than someone trying to be funny and not funny, or even sometimes more than someone trying to do like a big dramatic monologue and it just like tank, is someone trying to be cool and you're watching it and not only do you not believe it, but you just you're like, oh God, this is so bad. You know, it gets to the point where you're watching through your fingers type of thing. Elliot Gould is so cool in this, like effortlessly.
I
And,
know.
You know, the way he smokes, the way he lights his cigarettes, the way he, you know, will even like do things like dress or hold his jacket. And that's part of it. Part of being believably cool is that every single thing you do, every facet of movement and every little detail of just action is nailed down. And that's the thing. Everything he does in this looks like something that character would do. And to me, like the payoff is, and I referenced this in the first half, is that when the Augustine finds the $5,000 bill, and it's like, this is kind of like, this is where he's cooked. Like, you know, he finds this, and he's done now. Fortunately, you know, fate works out, but he asks him, what is this? He's like, a picture of James Madison. I was just like, that's so cool. So I think Elliot Gould is great in this. I totally understand why Elliot Gould never necessarily took off as like a leading man, because this kind of performance or the things he's good at are not, you know, Brad Pitt can appeal to everybody. He does have like a sharp edge to him. Not that Brad can't, but you know, I was blanking on who's Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, that type of leading man. I can understand why he never got to that point, but
yeah,
for
they're
something
movie
like this,
stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For something like this, though, I think he's excellent. And you know, not to harp on that opening, I think that eased me into the movie, and I was just kind of down for whatever was going to happen. That whole sequence with like the cat waking him up, him going to the supermarket, the whole thing of him putting it in the other jar or the can to try to trick the cat, and it didn't work. And you know, all throughout that, he's like talking to himself and, you know, lighting up a cigarette, and it's
when he tries to
excellent.
make the cat food, who makes a cat, like who thinks that like a cat is gonna like, what is it, like eggs? He scrambles up some eggs.
And he puts some Morton salt on it. And he's like, here you go.
Washington, D.C.
Girls, did you see my cat?
I didn't even know you had a cat, Mr. Marlowe. Just say you wanted to have.
No, you don't look fat.
Mr. Marlowe. Flowers on this.
Well, I think it's weird though that because yes, you're right, he's cool, but he is not cool the way that Bogart played him. And I know you haven't seen him, Alex, but kind of like what I said in Contrarians Corner, you can probably picture what a Bogart Philip Marlowe looks like, and it's not at all what Elliot Gould is doing here, but it still works. And I agree that there's a coolness that Marlowe has. I agree. It's kind of fascinating that you can have him play cool in two separate decades, you know, in a very different way, because the Marlowe from Big Sleep, he's more together. You know, he's not. You don't get the feeling that he accidentally solves the mysteries. He's very laser focused in where he goes. He's very quippy. He's very like quick on his feet. Every now and then the tables will turn and he gets caught unaware, but for the most part, you are pretty sure that this guy is going to come out on top no matter what. Whereas when you're watching Elliot Gould, it's almost like by accident he finds these clues and he runs into it. And but they're both like, it's two different versions of cool, right? Because I agree, I hadn't really thought about it until you said it, Alex, but he is cool in this movie. Like when I was writing my notes, I was like, man, this guy is such a loser. He just can't get his shit together. But the reason that I'm following him all the way to the end is because it's just so funny and so cool to see him not let anything get to him. You know, there's a couple moments where he just gets shaken, but then he comes back and he's like, whatever, I'm just gonna smoke another cigarette and move on to the next set piece.
It's interesting because it's like, you know, referencing the Coens, and to me, you know, Llewyn Davis, this is who Llewyn thinks he is, but he's actually an asshole. And obviously that's one of the things that movie is captivating for different reasons. But like, back to what we're talking about here with The Long Goodbye, to go down our other usual stats we did mention in the first half, released on March 7th of 1973, budget of $1.7 million with a box office return of less than $1 million. Back to Dale's point about didn't set the world on fire upon release. Robert Altman, Lee Brackett, based on The Long Goodbye by Raymond Chandler. And so, you know, the discussion we've had so far, Dale had read this. Now, the Eileen character in the source material, is she a bit more flushed out? Because no fault of necessarily Nina Van Pollant.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say she's weak. I'd just say she doesn't have really too much to do in it. Now,
Yeah, I won't say any Chandler novel where a female character has too much to do in it, to be honest with you. Like, I would say, if anything, she's more fleshed out here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Female characters were not like generally given full, like, allowed to be full people in most of those novels. The femme fatale thing is like, at the most that they were devious, and that made them somewhat interesting.
They have two settings, seductive and hysterical. That's all.
Yes. Correct.
All right. So that explains that. The funniest little IMDb trivia fact that I found, it was cracking me up, was so the date of Judgment Day in the Terminator world, at least the first and second one, is August 29th of 1997. Elliot Gould's birthday is August 29th. So I thought
nice.
that was
coming back around there. So it was actually like, we're all, this is a safe space. I'm assuming we're all nerds here. So
Yes.
I'll admit that when I found out we were like, you guys agreed to do the movie, I, went back and watched some interviews and did some stuff, just to get my nerd research together. And I get Elliot Gould's career was like at a low when this came out. He had like a big start to his career and some Oscar nominations for his first couple of movies. Never won one, but he was one of the first American actors to go make a movie with Ingmar Bergman.
Really?
And then, yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but it was, you can look that up. And when he came back, he was just, kind of full of himself decided he was going to direct a movie. But apparently he was terrible at it. And he got that, sort of label that you get of somebody difficult to work with. And nobody wanted to hire him when Altman finally called him up for this and, brought him back into the fold again. But he said he'd been out of work for like over a year and couldn't seem to find anything before he finally got this one.
looks like it was The Touch with the film Ingmar Bergman. That's wild.
So this was when we did the player, I remember walking away from the players thinking I need to watch more Altman movies. And then of course here we are years later and I've watched maybe one other one. Because I've seen the player, I've seen what's this last one? The last one that's about a radio station, Prairie Home Companion. And I've owned the Criterion for Shortcuts for at least 5 years, and I still haven't watched it. Gosford Park, I've seen it, but not a whole lot. So I'm not at the point of my Altman knowledge to where I can tell you, oh, and this is so Altman, or this is so unlike Altman, other than it being kind of having a sprawling cast. But even then, like this one feels very mostly focused on Elliot Gould. It's like Marlowe, and then yes, there's a lot of characters, but it's not an ensemble piece. It's just him walking through. So I guess it's a little bit more like the player in that sense. But I'm not. Are you familiar with Altman, like with his filmography more than I am?
Not where I've consciously like gone to more than that for sure. Like I've seen maybe half of his stuff, but not where I've consciously gone to watch Altman in any kind of. And I like him as a director too. He's one that sort of just broke into it on his own. His first film was like a gang movie back when those were sort of the cool thing to do. That he funded himself and filmed, I want to say like Chicago or something, but that caught the attention of studios. And then, so he's just, I think, one of those like talents that was able to like break into the industry from the outside, which is very rare. But I also think that made him kind of like skeptical of the industry as well. And a lot of his movies are, I do think that he's taken jabs at Hollywood in this movie for sure, and having fun with that, and poking fun at a lot of Hollywood cliches and lifestyles and stuff. What did you guys think of the camera work? Because the camera just moves all the time in this movie.
Yeah, that was one of the things I read about that I found fascinating. It's not, and to our listeners who haven't seen this, it's not bullshit like Bourne camera style moving. It's the camera's on a dolly the entirety of it. And from what I read, Altman wanted the camera to constantly be in some state of motion to make it seem more voyeuristic for the audience.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, almost like the camera is its own character, so that you get to be sort of a voyeur character in there.
Yeah.
I like how it fits with just the MO of Philip Marlowe as played by Gould, where he's just kind of on the move, but in a very chill way. Because you're right, it's not the camera doesn't jolt you. Like the way that this movie is shot is not to, with the exception of when Joanne gets hit by the Coke bottle. Even when Marlowe gets run over, it's not this big moment that shocks you. It's
right.
For the most part, it's just as chill. Like the camera movement is as chill as Marlowe, Elliot Gould's version of Marlowe. It's all of a piece, and I enjoy that a lot.
When he gets hit by the car, you would almost feel it's an out of place gag when it shows that dude in the hospital bed that's completely bandaged head to toe, and then it's like, oh wait, no, that's not him, and cuts over. But just due to like the mood, the vibe, as we keep saying, of the movie, it kind of pays off, and you're like, oh shit. And then you just start laughing when it shows Elliot Gould waking up. And
then Gould does that mumbling thing where he kind of gives you like an exposition on things that have happening, and he's like, waking up and this thing. After like, but like the way that it's done, you don't feel like it's. I don't know. It just doesn't like it feels fine.
Yeah.
It's not like you were saying, somebody like explaining the plot to you, which he kind of is, but like also you're like, it's so fun. The way he does it.
That's I think his performance is the thing that, at least for me, it's the thing that carried me through the movie, and so I didn't mind whenever the plot hit a snag, or whenever it felt like, oh yeah, all he's doing is just explaining to me what's happening, because that's kind of a cheat, right? Every time that they explain the things that he's either figured out or that he should have figured out, it's just him telling us, but because he's just such a fun character to follow, that I didn't mind.
Blew his brains out in a little godforsaken town in Mexico. He left a full confession.
Yeah, I'm reading it. You don't got to describe it to me, too.
Now, the thing where I'll criticize the movie, or at least what I've identified as my problem with it, because I told you, Alex, at the beginning of this, I said, I want to hear you talk, because I had a pretty good idea that Dale really liked this movie, and I wanted to know how you felt, Alex, because I know that after watching it 1.5 times, I liked it a lot, but there was something that wasn't quite working for me. And I think that what it is that a little bit like what we said at the end of Contrarians Corner, I'm not sure where we arrive when it comes to the Marlowe character at the very end. I'm with you. I'm glad that he killed Lennox. That guy is a piece of shit. But I think that if he kills Lennox, and then he kind of like throws the gun to the side and he just sits down and, lets it soak. He soaks it in, and then we cut the credits. That I'm pretty sure where we are there. I'm like, oh, okay. The joke I made was like, oh, the whole idea behind this movie was to break down Philip Marlowe and just have him be catch up to the times at the end of the movie. And we're like, yep, I was too nice to everybody. But what the movie does is he kills Lennox, and then he has this triumphant walk away, and then he dances.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that he actually doesn't give a shit? Like he doesn't really care that much? Because if that's the case, then I don't know that it was a very entertaining ride, but I don't think that's I don't know what to make of that ending. I guess that's my thing. Dale, what do you make of the ending? Alex, what do you make of the ending?
I think what you're saying makes absolute sense, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. I think that once again, it's maybe more of a mood or a tone thing. If they had ended it the way you're talking about, which does make sense to me, actually, that like he kills him and he just sort of sits down and is like, like how did we all come to this place? That makes sense to me, but like the mood of the entire movie is not that mood.
Yes.
For me, I had a Holy Motors moment of just like, of course that's the ending. Like that's how it ends. So I didn't find myself being too bothered by it. I was more concerned he was going to choke on that tiny harmonica. But no, all jesting aside, I kind of like the
the Mask of the Phantasm moment where he just kind of looks at her like, you know what you did, and she speeds away while he walks away to a complete uncertainty. And I if I wanted to read further into it, I could figure something out, but when it was over, it's just like, that's how the movie ends, and that works for me. So that was kind of where I stood.
I also think, Marlowe is, his conscience is clear. He is very straightforward and pretty honest for whatever else it is. Like, even when he's talking to the cops and the gang, the criminals that are trying to get him, he always just tells them the truth. You know what I mean? Like, when they ask him, like, what did you do with Terry Lennox? He's like, I drove him to the thing, and then I did all this, and then I went and did this, and I tried to give my cat food. He always is pretty straightforward about it, and in the end, his actions were straightforward too. He's like, you did this, it was a horrible thing, and my actions are, appropriate for this, and now I'm fine. I'm going to go back and go to my apartment and look at naked hippie chicks, and I'll be cool.
I think now I have a new one. I think maybe Altman is telling us that we underestimate the goofball at our own peril.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that, because Altman's kind of a goofball too, a little bit in some of his movies, but then he gets acerbic when he needs to be.
Yeah, and he shoots Lennox, and then he goes back. It bothered him for a little bit, but then he goes back to being the same Philip Marlowe that he was at the beginning of the movie. And
I think Alex mentioned this too. If you think about the times that this was being created, this was the sort of the hippie thing was the alternative, lifestyle. Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters and all that stuff was going on, and so. Marlowe kind of fits into that as the anti-hero, of an era where that you could get behind.
Yeah, he's not the system. He's against the man, and then he prevails at the end. So, all right.
As Buffalo Springfield said, there's something happening here. And that's one of the best jokes in Walk Hard is it's from this time period, and Dewey says to his wife, he's like, there's something happening here, and what it is ain't exactly evident.
Well, to take it back, actually, Alex, just to make it clear that I enjoyed this movie, and it's I am not sure what to make of the ending. I enjoy trying to figure it out, and taking it back to our last episode, where I had some quibbles with the way that Riders of Justice ended as well. When it comes down to it, it's I ultimately don't care because I had such a good time. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a good time. I really liked it. I'm with you, Alex. I'm gonna add it to my Criterion collection. Now, are you ready to rate this thing?
I am. I was gonna go with a B+, but I think I'm gonna go with after this discussion and me realizing more of how much I liked it, I think an A-. There are some things in it that you can't cut anything out of this and it be the same movie that it is. I can say there's things that don't work for me that push it over the top to being, what I consider a top grade film. But the runtime, I'm always a stickler for that. And while maybe I started to feel it a little bit, it was just because everything was tying itself up, and then it's, what we love, climax, roll the credits, shoots the guy, get out of the theater. That's what I need in my movie. So I will go with an A-. When I log it on Letterboxd, we'll probably go with 4.5. So we'll do a contrarian sandwich here. Dale, I do letter grades, Julio does star ratings. We've had people on here before that have their own system. So whatever means you would like to rate this movie, just let us know what scale you're grading on and what you give it.
Just watching it objectively, I would say B+ as far as a movie, but as a movie that I love, it's a solid A. There's movies that I rank higher than this as better movies, but I don't watch them over and over again and enjoy them. So this I agree. There are some faults with this movie, but the entire thing of it is so fun that there's a lot that I forgive.
my brain is going down a rabbit hole right now of possible interpretations for that ending, because now I'm thinking, hooray for Hollywood, and so is he kind of like what you were saying, is he criticizing the way that Hollywood was telling stories and the way that we back in the 40s, whenever Bogart played Marlowe, and we were perfectly okay with him shooting a bunch of people in that movie. And then in this movie, he shoots one guy, and I'm having an existential crisis over it. So I don't know. I think that there's definitely, this is not a case of me projecting, I don't think, on the movie. I think that the movie has a lot that you can dig out if you want to, or you can just watch it and chill with Elliot Gould over it. So I really liked it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars with the potential to go even higher after I watch it more times and I maybe feel comfortable landing on one possible interpretation of what happens at the end. But it's it's really good. I really enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed it more than I did The Big Sleep, and it's one that I would recommend because it's I don't think it's too difficult to follow, and I think that it's such a delightful showcase of a type of performance from Elliot Gould that you normally don't see, or at least people like you and I, Alex, like we're not familiar with that. So it's just really cool to see him do something else and do it so well.
Agreed. So now, before we get out of here, our guest, Dale, hit him with it. Where can they find you? What can they find from you? Where do you want them to go? Just anything and everything you have to plug. Go for it.
How do you find the Mean Reds?
You can it's on Amazon, easiest place to order it. But if you're averse to Amazon, and I completely understand that, you can just go to my website, which is dalebridges.org, and there's you can order it directly from the publisher. You can order it from Walmart. I don't know why that exists, but you can order it through there. So if you do order it, it hugely helps, especially when you're publishing small press books like this, where we don't get a big marketing publishing campaign, and you can't get the attention of New York Times book reviewers. So if you could rate it and on Amazon and or Goodreads, a star rating and say, I liked it, I thought it was okay. Those are perfectly fine ratings. It doesn't have to be like some sort of, award-winning critical review. Just the rating itself helps get it a little bit more attention and get it maybe on the eyes of some new people. And then if you are also interested in art, I'm also a painter, and you can go to dalebridgesart.com. And I will be there as well if you're interested in looking at those.
Well, I strongly recommend Dale's book. I think that anybody who enjoys this show would definitely enjoy the book. And if you enjoy, on top of that, movies like The Long Goodbye or any other noir, then you get an extra kick out of it because of all the layers of noir that are sprinkled throughout the book. But yeah, big recommendation. Every time I brought it up, I've done that. And you promised, Dale, your next book is going to include some sort of wrestling subplot so that Alex can hook into it.
Yeah, it's going to be strange because it's, started off as a romance, but now that I have to put a wrestling subplot in there. So, but we'll work it in.
Good.
Hey man, just Night in the City, where part of it is they still thought wrestling was real and the guy is getting hunted for fixing wrestling matches. But and also, just to kind of like offer a personal testimony, don't knock ordering from Walmart.com. Like if you go over $30, they have free shipping. And I was ordering some movies off there that were only available at Walmart, and it was like, $27. And I was like, well, I got to find something to order. And they sold through the website a 48-pack of chili lime ramen for $5. That put me over the edge. And then this gigantic box showed up at my door, and I opened it, and it's just 48 pouches of ramen that lasted us like 6 months.
So you can get ramen at the Mean Reds, and then you have your weekend planned.
That's a whole weekend.
Bowl of ramen with a good book. Yeah, there you go.
I just also wanted to say thank you guys for letting me come on. I am a fan of the podcast. I'm a subscriber, and I've been recommended it to other people. I'm really excited and honored to be invited to come on and talk about it with you guys. You guys are a lot of fun. And not in a way, like some podcasts with movies can get a little bit I don't know, too up their own ass, and you guys, I enjoy, like, I listen to podcasts of movies that you guys are talking about that I haven't even watched yet, just because the conversation is fun. So,
well, we appreciate it.
Really nice.
Yeah, Julio, that we got to make the T-shirt the proper level of up our ass, like, or something like that. We're not too up our own ass, but yeah. No, thank you for being on. It's always a bit of a daunting task when we have guests on, but this went really well, and it was a movie that was obviously new to us and very exciting to do. So, Julio, I think we did The Long Goodbye justice. So, if Elliot Gould, if you're listening in your palatial palace somewhere, we hope we did you good.
We love you, Elliot.
Yes, we do. At least in this movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, are you curious about what happens next in our Contrarians journey?
Yes, you've been facilitating the patron messages as far as what we're doing, so it's kind of always news to me. So what's going down?
Oh, buddy, I hope that you've cleared the weekend, because patron Chaz Fisher wants us to do Jurassic World Dominion, which is at 29% rotten. Now, I am ahead of you because I've watched Jurassic World and then Jurassic World, whatever the second one was called. So I only need to watch this one, but I don't know. What are you gonna do, Alex? Are you gonna jump into this third installment of the new Jurassic World just cold, or are you gonna watch the previous two movies in order to know what's going on?
I don't. The one that the cover of it was Chris Pratt writing. What was the one that, like, the first one that made so much more money than was expected?
That's Jurassic World.
Okay, that was given to me as a Christmas gift by a family member. They're like, "You like movies," and so I have that. So I'll watch that one.
Okay.
This movie is 2.5 hours long.
They needed every minute of that, Alex. They
Jesus.
could not have cut out 5 minutes of exposition. It's absolutely all needed.
Well, it made $1 billion, so I'm the asshole. But all right, well, let's do it. I mean, I love the original Jurassic Park. Played the Jurassic Park game for Genesis religiously as a kid, so I can convince myself into giving good discussion about this.
Sounds good. Well, that's up in the near future. Get us out of here, Alex.
All right, so we'll close it out with our perennial plugs. Start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years, who provide our opening and closing tracks. Kick us off with Last Stand. Take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rodgieser is the man behind our logo, all the graphics on our webpage, our Patreon page, our merch page. That's him. Well, that's not him. That's the tomato that he drew for us. Hans is also a novelist. He's written a bunch of fantasy novels. I don't think he's ever dabbled in noir, but he leans more towards the fantasy genre, as I said. And he has 2 podcasts, Nación Combi, which is about Peruvian current affairs, and Marginal, which is about economy. If you want to check out his work, go to mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS.pe. Or you can reach him on Twitter at mildemonios, or you can email him, mildemonios@hotmail.com. Hans, thank you for all your support.
And as has become tradition, we give thanks and love to our friends at the Late Night Grin. LateNightGrin.com, at Late Night Grin on Twitter. You can find all their information there. All your needs in the world of professional wrestling podcasting. They are so gracious as to include me once a month on a show called Grin Grappler. Just last night recorded an episode reviewing the life and times in the career of the one and only Rowdy Roddy Piper. I made sure to say that aside from Dwayne Johnson, he probably has the biggest feather in his cap of any pro wrestler that crossed over into movies, in the sense that he starred in a fucking John Carpenter movie. So, take of that what you will. Hogan, if you're listening to this, don't sue us, brother. But Joe, Oracle, Rob, Matt, and everyone else over at Late Night Grin, nothing but love. Appreciate what y'all do for the wrestling community that I am now attempting to withdraw from, but we'll always look forward to partaking in y'all's shows. And we also want to give all of our love and appreciation to our social media team. It's a team of 2, but they do the work of a fucking army. Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Corey recently put together some fantastic videos for Alien Day, and just the curating they do of our social media game does not go unrecognized or unappreciated. So you can check out their work, be it on Instagram at Contrarian Prime, Facebook.com/Contrarian Prime, YouTube.com/@Contrarian Prime, and we'll even link off from our Twitter account, which you can find in the bumper. Corey, Zoe, we really appreciate the work that you do for us, and we appreciate our wonderful guest here today, and the listening public that continues to support and tune in. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
A long goodbye.
Zing!